Hey everybody, this will be the review of my 2017 Jeep Renegade Latitude that I picked up day before yesterday. It's the Jet Set Blue is the color, and this is going to be my winter vehicle and also the vehicle I drive around because I'm trying to not put as many miles on my other car. So I picked it up from AutoNation in Littleton, Colorado. The base price was about $25 and change. After all the discounts I negotiated, I got about $5,500 off. So that's a pretty good chunk off, over 20% for sure, of the MSRP. So there is definitely some negotiating to be had on these right now because the 2018s are about to come out, and Jeep just has a lot of incentives on these anyway. So we'll talk about some of the options that I got. You can see this. So again, it's the base Jeep Renegade, and then some of the options that I got are the 16-inch upgraded wheels, roof rails, well actually that's all standard, hold on, cold weather group, passive entry, and the 17-inch aluminum wheels. So those are the only upgrades I got. Other than that, it's pretty much standard. So there was only the base car of $23,400 plus a little over $2,000 in options. So the actual total price of this car was actually supposed to be $26,970, and at the end of the day, I got it for $19 and change. So maybe I even got a little bit more off than I thought. So of course, then after you add in tax and destination fees, and I got the windshield protection for 3 years, and I upped the warranty to 4 years rather than 3. So a couple of extra, features here and there. I like the blue color. I was torn between blue and white. I wasn't quite sure which way to go. The family outvoted me and went with blue. The only thing I don't like about the blue color is sometimes in certain light it gets a little bit of purple color to it. So we're adding this to the Cayman, which will still be my daily driver, although I'm trying to put less miles on it, and my wife's Cayenne, which I don't drive anyway. So it's got the 2.4 liter engine, which is definitely a change coming from the Cayman. It's a good engine. It's totally capable of going point A to point B. I will tell you, if you're on an on-ramp and you're competing with the guy next to you, don't, because you're not going to be able to overtake anyone like that. So it just takes a little bit of stylistically different driving to drive this thing. The interior is pretty good. It's roomy. My neighbor is 6'5", and he already sat in it, and he says he's got more room in this than his Wrangler. He had about 6 inches of extra headroom, and the seats went further down and further back than his Wrangler did. So from a room perspective, me being 5'7", I'm never going to have any problems. It's comfortable. Got the automatic transmission, the Uconnect 5.0, which is an easy to use system. It doesn't sound great. I'm going to be taking the subwoofer and amplifier out of my Audi and putting it in here just to give it a little bit more sound. Replacing the OEM head unit is problematic for a lot of reasons. A lot of the car computer controls are controlled through the head unit, so it doesn't look like replacing the head unit is a really good option. But I can, change the speakers and everything else. It's got power windows, power doors. It's got the passive entry, so you can lock the doors with a push of a button, and then you can unlock just by putting your hand, if you're close enough, to the door. The back seat is roomy enough, so I'm 5'7", and it gives that much leg room. I was driving yesterday, and I had 3 teenage boys in the background, in the back seat, and they all fit just fine. I will tell you this, they were dancing to some songs and kind of being, you know, 14, 15-year-old boys. And when they're dancing in the back of the car, the whole car was shaking while I was driving it. So it's not a big enough of a car where it can handle bouncing teenagers in the back seat without feeling it while you're driving. The cloth seats they're okay, they're comfortable, but I don't like this Jeep see-through that you can see through. But this wasn't, you know, my dream vehicle. This is a necessity vehicle, so I can drive it in the winter. I already looked on Tire Rack to replace these tires. It gave me the Dunlap tires. They're all seasons. That tread doesn't look super aggressive. Tire Rack doesn't show any Blizzaks available, but the Michelin X Ice cost about $100 a piece. So probably it's going to cost me somewhere between $400 and $500 to put good snow tires on this vehicle, and that's what I'm going to do. In the back, we have plenty of room. There is a single exhaust on the passenger side. Here's the subwoofer. I'm going to have wired in with a single channel amp. It's just a simple radar detector that I'm going to have mounted, and the cables hidden. Underneath there is no spare tire. There is a tire inflation repair kit, whatever. So there's actually a lot of room underneath that lip. I'd say probably a couple inches at the very least. If I lift this up, you can actually see there's quite a bit of space underneath there. And then there's a cutout where the spare tire would go. I spoke with someone at Jeep, and it's like $1,500 to put a donut back there, so I don't think I'm going to do that. It's just too pricey. I'll just go with the tire repair kit, and let's be honest, if I get a flat, I'm going to probably at this point in my life call someone to come fix it anyway. So the seats lay back, giving you plenty of room. I'm sure you've seen that on plenty of other videos. There is no center armrest on this model, but if you lay the seat down, you get lots of extra room back here. The front seat, I don't have that little hidden seat like some of the other Jeeps do, but if you actually pull this forward, this front seat lays down pretty far too. So if you had to, you could lay something like large lumber or something all the way across the back to get even more room. There are two USB ports. I've got my iPod plugged into that one. There is another USB port in the armrest, but it does not connect to the stereo system. So that is the only USB port that you can plug in your iPhone or your iPad to. The other one's strictly for power. It's got the four-wheel drive, so it's got the automatic four-wheel drive, and then it's got a couple of different settings you can put it in: snow, sand, and mud. I'll probably never touch any of that stuff. Push ignition start. It's got some pretty intuitive steering wheel controls. The center LCD screen shows you, information. I think I'm going to leave it on the speedometer. It has a very large indicator of speed, so that's good. Like I said, this little touch screen here is almost comical. It's so small. When the backup camera kicks in, I mean, other than seeing if someone is walking behind you, it's almost useless, but it does have a backup camera on it. The glove box is pretty big and pretty deep. Right now I've got all the manuals and stuff that came with it, and there's plenty of room to put, a couple extra things in there if you wanted to. The cup holders are pretty low, lower than most consoles, but they seem to fit drinks just fine. They're actually a little snug. I had a soft drink from, I want to say Sonic or something, and it actually squeezes it so tight. Sonic gives you those almost styrofoam cups rather than the plastic cups, and it was almost squeezing it too tight where I was afraid it was going to put a hole in it. So things are snug. They're not going anywhere. And you've got two here, and then you've got one on each door. In the back seat, you don't have a center armrest, so the only cup holders you have are in the door. So far, I'm happy with it. I've, put maybe 100, 150 miles on it so far, just kind of driving around. And the whole purpose of this vehicle is just to get me from point A to point B, put some fewer miles on the Porsche, and in the winter when there's snow on the ground, to drive this. There is, I want to say, I think they tell me it's 7.5 inches or something of clearance. The most noticeable difference for me is I can drive right up to curbs without worrying about scraping the front end, which I can't do on the Porsche. I have to stop way short. Driving the car, it is a bit boxy. So, for example, pulling into my garage is a bit challenging. It's hard to judge this side over here. I'm starting to get the hang of it, so I've kind of been coming in at an angle and then kind of swerving around. Both vehicles do fit. My wife's vehicle is huge, and I fit well enough in a standard 2-car, and then my other car's in the 3rd car. So you can fit 2 SUVs with a vehicle of this size. Other contenders were the Subaru Crosstrek, which we were inches away from getting, and then there was the Jeep Cherokee, which they've also got crazy incentives on. But at the end of the day, I ended up paying, after all the taxes and everything else, I want to say something in the neighborhood of, let me see, I negotiated them down to 21 even, I believe, on this car out the door, or maybe it was 21.5. No, it was 21 out the door. So that was with taxes and title. And then I was gonna get about 27 on a limited Cherokee. So although it would have had more features, it would have had the V6 engine. At the end of the day, it was going to cost me $6,000 more. So the purpose of this vehicle is point A to point B, and something that drives in the snow. So at the end of the day, we went a little cheap and saved some money. This is probably going to be my son's car in a couple years. He's 13 now, so in about 3 years, this will be a good first vehicle for a teenage boy. So all in all, for a summary of this vehicle, it's a great point A to point B vehicle if you want something that's 4-wheel drive. It's not what I would call an off-roader, although I've been told the Trailhawk edition is capable. But if you're going to do that for the price, you might as well just get a Wrangler. It falls within that class of the RAV4. Or the Honda CR-V or the Subaru Crosstrek. I drove all those, and I ended up picking this vehicle. Although the looks are a little controversial, and I used to hate the back square taillights, it's actually growing on me. It's actually cute and kind of funky. It's going to sound weird, but in a way it kind of reminds me of my Mini Cooper. It's kind of small and quirky and kind of fun to drive. It doesn't have nearly the get up and go or punch as that V6 Cherokee did. And from an engine perspective, this is definitely not a super powerful engine. I haven't had any problems with the shifting. A lot of people say that the car doesn't really know which gear to be in. I haven't had any problem like that. But I will say that if you're on an on-ramp, and I was on one of those on-ramps yesterday where it starts off as 2 lanes and then merges into 1 before it merges with the highway. And I was stepping on it, and I was just basically staying even pace with the guy next to me. So my only option was to hit the brake and let him go. So if you're looking for a powerful car, this is not it. But nothing in this class is really powerful. The RAV4 and the Crosstrek and the CR-V, they're all underpowered engines. So this is not what that is. If I want to step on it, I'll get in my other car and I'll overtake whoever I want to. So I'm happy with it. There are no regrets. I would purchase it again tomorrow if I was looking for this exact same vehicle. It's comfortable to drive. It's relatively quiet and smooth. It's definitely quieter and smoother than my Porsche Cayman, but it's nowhere near as comfortable as my wife's Cayenne. The Subaru Crosstrek was much more car-like in its driving, and this is definitely feels not quite like an SUV, but somewhere in between. I would definitely recommend this vehicle if you're looking for something in that 20 to 25 price range. that's it. If anyone has any questions or anything you want to see or know about the vehicle, let me know. And well, I now have the third car in the stable, 2 Porsches and a Jeep.